and welcome to the Weird Teachers Classcast. My name is Doug Robertson, and I'm your weird teacher. Today I want to talk about something that I talk about in the book, and that's read-alouds. I think that read-alouds are probably my favorite thing that I do in class, or one of my favorite things, because you get to have so much fun, and the books that you get to choose are so incredible, especially children's books. They're so touching, and they're so funny, and they're so interesting, and there's such great characters in them. And one of the best parts is doing voices, because if you're not doing voices, then what are you doing? You're just reading, and that's boring. You gotta show the kids that reading is performing. Reading is acting. Reading is a play that happens inside of your own head. But we model that by reading out loud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a couple of selections from some of my favorite read-alouds so that you can hear how I think some of these stories should be read. So, enjoy. "Thank you," said Roscuro. "Do I need to review with you again our plan of action?" "I got it all straight right in my head," whispered Mig, and she tapped the side of her head with one finger. "How comforting," said Roscuro. "Perhaps, my dear, we should go over it again, one more time, just to be sure." "Well," said Mig, "we go into the princess's room, and she'll be sleeping and snoozing and snoring. I'll wake her up and show her the knife and say, 'If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you must come with me.'" "And you will not hurt her?" said Roscuro. "No, I won't, 'cause I want her to live so that she can be my lady-in-waiting when I become the princess." "Exactly," said Roscuro. "That will be her divine comeuppance." "Go," whispered Mig. "Yeah, a divine comeuppance." Mig had, of course, no idea what the phrase divine comeuppance meant, but she very much liked the sound of it, and she repeated it over and over to herself until Roscuro said, "And then?" "And then," continued Mig, "I tells her to get out of her princess bed and come with me on a little journey." said Roscuro. "A little journey, that's right. I love the understatements of that phrase, a little journey. Oh, it will be a little journey. Indeed it will." "And then," said Mig, who was now coming to the favorite part of her plan, "we takes her down to the deep downs, and we gives her some long lessons in how to be a servant girl, and we gives me some short lessons in how to be a princess, and when we's all done studying up, we switch places. I gets to be a princess, and she gets to be a maid." Oh, God. Reader, this is the very plan that Roscuro presented to Mig when he first met her. It was, of course, a ridiculous plan. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, entreating entrance at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books a crease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden who the angels name Lenore, nameless here, forevermore. What do you know about Tweedlebeetles? Well, When Tweedlebeetles fight, it's called a Tweedlebeetle battle, and when they battle in a puddle, it's a Tweedlebeetle puddle battle. And when Tweedlebeetles battle with paddles in a puddle, they call it a Tweedlebeetle puddle paddle battle. And when beetles battle beetles in a puddle paddle battle, and the beetle battle puddle is a puddle in a bottle, they call this a Tweedlebeetle bottle puddle paddle paddle muddle. And when beetles fight these battles in a bottle with their paddles, and the bottle's on a poodle, and the poodle's eating noodles, they call this a muddle puddle tweedle poodle beetle noodle bottle paddle battle. Bruce Bogtrotter! The Trunchbull barked suddenly. Where is Bruce Bogtrotter? A hand shot up among the seated children. Come up here, the Trunchbull shouted, and look smart about it. An 11-year-old boy, who was decidedly large and round, stood up and waddled briskly forward. He climbed up onto the platform. Stand over there, the Trunchbull ordered, pointing. The boy stood to one side. He looked nervous. He knew very well he wasn't up there to be presented with a prize. He was watching the headmistress with an exceedingly wary eye, and he kept edging farther and farther away from her, with little shuffles of his feet, rather as a rat might edge away from a terrier that is watching it from across a room. His plump, flabby face had turned gray with fearful apprehension. His stockings hung around his ankles. This clot, boomed the headmistress, pointing the riding crop at him like a rapier. This blackhead, this foul carbuncle, this poisonous pustule that you see before you is none other than a disgusting criminal, a denizen of the underworld, a member of the mafia. Oh, May, said Bruce Bogtrotter, looking genuinely puzzled. A thief! The Trunchbull screamed. A crook! A pirate! A brigand! A rustler! Steady on, the boy said. I mean, dash it all, headmistress. Do you deny it, you miserable little gumboil? Do you plead not guilty? I don't know what you're talking about, the boy said, more puzzled than ever. I'll tell you what I'm talking about, you suppurating little blister, the Trunchbull shouted. Yesterday morning, during break, you sneaked like a serpent into the kitchen and stole a slice of my private chocolate cake from my tea tray. That tray had just been prepared for me personally by the cook. It was my morning snack, and it was cake. It was my own private stock. It was not boy's cake. You do not think for 1 minute I'm going to eat the filth I give you. That cake was made from real butter and real cream. And he, that robber bandit, that safe cracker, that highwayman standing over there with his socks around his ankles, stole it and ate it. Templeton crept into the crate and buried himself in the straw. He got out of sight just in time. Lurvy and John Arable and Mr. Zuckerman came along at that moment, followed by Mrs. Arable and Mrs. Zuckerman and Avery and Fern. Wilbur had already decided how he would carry the egg sack. There was only one way possible. He carefully took the little bundle in his mouth and held it there on top of his tongue. He remembered what Charlotte had told him. The sack was waterproof and strong. It felt funny on his tongue and it made him drool a bit. And of course he couldn't say anything. But as he was being shoved into the crate, he looked up at Charlotte and gave her a wink. She knew he was saying goodbye in the only way he could, and she knew her children were safe. Goodbye, she whispered. Then she summoned all of her strength and waved one of her front legs at him. She never moved again. Next day, as the Ferris wheel was being taken apart, and the race horses were being loaded into vans, and the entertainers were packing up their belongings and driving away in their trailers, Charlotte died. The fairgrounds were soon deserted. The sheds and buildings were empty and forlorn. The infield was littered with bottles and trash. Nobody, of the hundreds of people that had visited the fair, knew that a gray spider had played the most important role of all. No one was with her when she died.